Welcome to Call Report Live. I'm Bob Coleman, and we're talking Main Street and the small business, the PPP lenders who help it grow. We have a ton of support, ton of audience. Thank you very much. We have a ton of questions. Lance Sexton and Katie Roach, you all know our principals. There's that. We're just going to get into this. We're going to have a ton of questions, a ton of new news, Lance.
Hey, Bob.
Go ahead.
I wish they could hear our conversation before we start, because we're talking about things the federal government does that doesn't make sense.
Do you want me to tell the story?
No, Bob. I'm just, I think all of our participants.
I'll give you the Reader's Digest. I have employees. I was short 1 penny for second quarter, 1 penny. And I got an assessment for $367 off of 1 penny. Anyway.
That's late fees.
And Lance and I were talking, what do I do? Write the check or fight it?
And I say write the check.
Right. Okay. Do you understand? Yeah, now you got my blood pressure back up.
This is a great question, Bob. Of course, SBA released some information about these hold codes. And I'm not surprised that only a small part of the group understands how to resolve hold codes.
What we have in your dashboard, we have the new guidance that came out. Lance, Joseph, there were 49 different hold codes?
Yeah, 49.
I'm sorry, Katie, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just confirming. Yeah, it's 49. It's a lot of hold codes, and probably you're not going to need to read the whole thing. You're just going to need to find the hold code that's matching your problem and then address it from there. But it is a lot of hold codes to go through, and it's possible you might have loans in your institution that have just about every hold code possible.
Well, it's like our friend Chris was talking about yesterday. I think he said he had 8 pages worth of hold code issues to deal with. And if you're doing a lot of PPP loans, it sounds like that's the norm.
Okay, number of questions. Yesterday we had a poll question. In fact, we'll do it again, that 20% of the loan submissions were held. So now although we had a lot of questions, we didn't know what that meant. Lance, how long do you expect for these codes to clear from SBA?
Well, I think something will happen real soon, and this is a lot like the first round of PPP when E-Tran blew up and SBA reached out for help. I think what SBA is trying to accomplish is a good goal. They're trying to prohibit fraud in the PPP program and
eligibility issues.
Eligibility issues as well. And, so what they're attempting to do is great, but what it's causing is a delay in funding for small businesses who greatly need it. In the first round, Bob, you could stick the loan in E-Tran, and if they had not already been approved somewhere else, or you didn't make a mistake in your E-Tran input, it got approved and you got a number.
Katie, this came out this morning. How do we resolve these?
Yeah, so actually it came out yesterday afternoon, but we did get a little bit more guidance this morning on it. Basically what they're addressing is a lot of lenders are saying they're getting these hold codes pop up when they're trying to submit these second draw PPP loans. And what it's going to say is unresolved borrower, and that'll give you some kind of hold code. Previously, before today, if you had an unresolved borrower, the system would kick out that loan and you would have to try to figure out what the issue was on your own, fix it, and then resubmit it. They don't want to do that anymore because that's slowing down the process, especially if these holds are getting put in place for something simple that can be easily fixed. So instead, as of today, the system's been updated so that lenders will be able to see exactly which hold code is being flagged. It's going to give you a short description of what that hold code means, and then provide examples of documentation that can help clear that hold code. So then what a lender is going to do is they're going to talk to the borrower, get all the documentation necessary to prove that that hold code should be cleared, and then submit it on the PPP platform. And the SBA will then review that and make a decision. That decision could take, that right now they're estimating over 48 hours after you submit, but that can be sped up a little bit if you do submit the first draw PPP loan application along with the rest of the documentation. That's not necessary, but it is recommended.
And they said you were in the call yesterday. Joseph, can you advance the slide, or are you stuck? No, we don't have that slide. Okay. You were in the call yesterday. They said 48 hours. What was the tone? Do you expect them to hit that 48 hours? And what was their tone on giving this information to lenders?
I expect it. So they said at least 48 hours. So I'm guessing don't expect a quick response. They have a lot of loans that got flagged. So it'll probably get faster as they start getting through the flagged loans. But currently it's probably going to take a little while. They didn't give a date estimate, but I would guess at least 2-3 days before you hear any kind of response.
Let's give an example. Here's an example of a hold code. Katie, why don't you walk us through it?
Yeah, so this is hold code 8, which is a mismatch of entity name. This is one of the examples the SBA gave yesterday on their call. What that's going to be flagging is if you have a borrower that most likely what happened is on their first loan, they wrote the company name and maybe it has a hyphen, or maybe they capitalized something that is no longer capitalized, or the hyphen's missing on the second draw. That's a pretty easy fix, but what you're going to do is you're going to submit tax returns. You're going to that verify the name and tax ID. You're going to file a copy of the DBA documents and a copy of the business license or state license for that particular business. So that should fix the issue for this particular one. I really do like that they give you that list of documents. It will make it a lot easier to try to prove this rather than just trying to say that you believe that that's not the case. So it should be pretty simple. They're going to have a place on the portal to upload these documents, and you should hear back again 48 hours, few days. I don't believe it's probably going to take a week, but it might during the early portion of this process.
Lance, we all understand the goal of we want to eliminate ineligible borrowers. We want to reduce fraud. We're not going to eliminate fraud. We want to reduce it dramatically. But we went from a seamless, fully automated system to here. There's a lot of touching of files. So is that
another thing that's occurred, and I'm sure everybody's feeling the same thing, a application that didn't really require a lot of documentation, when they get hold codes, suddenly they're having to provide more documentation. And again, Bob, I appreciate what SBA is trying to do, but the intent of the program is to get money in the hands of small businesses who need it to survive. So, you know, as participant lenders, we're just going to have to fight through these hold codes. But hopefully SBA will come up with a more simple.
My question on this specific example, do we need all three of these, or will any one suffice?
I'm guessing you're going to have all three. But here's the thing, Bob. One, and I know we don't have time to do this, but mismatch of company name. It may have been the person that put it in E-Tran the first time made a typographical error. Yeah. Very, very possible. So, you know, if you had a way to go into E-Tran servicing and run a list of your PPP loans to compare the names, but again, it takes a process that should be quick and easy and lengthens that process. But like I said, it's very possible that the source of this error is a typographical error the first round of PPP.
Yeah. All right, ton of questions. Let's get into it. Number one, Tara, for loans not approved, do you have to withdraw and resubmit?
For loans not approved, I am not sure. You know, I know in the first round, if you submitted one and then tried to resubmit it, it was problematic. So that is one, Bob, I'd send the question to the PPP questions email.
John asked a great question. It says the new PPP forgiveness apps are dated January 19th. Can we still process apps that were submitted under the older version?
I don't know what, well, I don't know why you wouldn't have them go ahead and complete the new forgiveness application, because it's much simpler, requires less information. And this is one of the keys, Bob. My old data processing, and it used to not be IT or whatever, but it was called data processing when I was in college. Always talked about GIGO, or, you know, garbage in, garbage out. And the only reason I bring that up, the simplified forgiveness form has less information, which takes away opportunities to make errors when inputting it. So I think I would use the new current form.
By the way, I want to challenge you on that. I don't think it was called data processing. I think it was slide rule 101, but we don't have to go there. Valerie asked the question, hey, can I do the 25 decrease on sales based on gross profit versus gross sales?
It needs to be revenue, and gross profit is not revenue. So we're going to use gross sales or gross revenue.
Valerie wants to know, how are franchises working in the second round? And if someone is not part of the SBA's franchise directory, do they still qualify for PPP second round loans?
My answer would be no. And this brings up a great point. We have gotten questions about PPP loans that got put on hold or got denied. You still have to look back in the you take the regulations according to the law on the PPP loans, but you also have to consider there's certain types of businesses that are not eligible for SBA loans. And those, as an example, somebody who's defaulted, Bob, we were talking about this earlier, on federal government debt. They're not going to be eligible for a PPP loan.
Is the hold code the same as a further research required? Answer is yes.
Yeah, pretty similar.
SBA alluded to the possibility that there will be continuing changes on how to calculate for Schedule C filers. Do you have any inside information? I don't, Lance, Katie.
No, I've heard the same thing, but haven't seen it yet.
Lending businesses are eligible per the legislation, or are they?
I did not see that in the legislation, and I'll tell you, lending businesses in the SOP 50-10-6 are not eligible for SBA loans. And that's another question. Russ had a question similar to that and said, hey, what about credit intermediation companies? Are they eligible? You gave a nice analogy, Lance. Please do that again. Well, I think the credit intermediation, I don't know what the NAICS code is without looking it up, but it very well could fall into a NAICS code that's similar to a payday lender. So please clarify and make sure you're using the correct NAICS code in that circumstance.
Nick says we've had a number of loans, quote, not approved by SBA with the error, dormant business identified. Any idea what this means?
It means that I'm not exactly sure how SBA identifies a dormant business. Like I said, a dormant business, sometimes you have seasonal businesses that are dormant for 6 months out of the year and only operate for 6 months. It could also be someone was sharing with me a story that they had laid all their employees off and discontinued filing the 941s and notified the IRS, and then they hired their employees back. That could be the circumstance, but I'm not exactly sure what a dormant business is other than the examples I gave.
Hope says on a few of our loans, it gets hung up. We can't even submit them to get an application number. What do we do?
I'm going to email the PPP support email address and explain that to them. They're doing a good job of responding to those.
How do we clear an error message holding up the submission of a draft into the portal? The resolution process starts once they actually submitted. We have issues on first draw loans from other lenders who did the loan on tax ID numbers.
Oh, that's one of the reasons why a number of financial institutions throughout the country, Bob, on the second draw loans are only doing those for the ones who did their first draw loan with them. Two advantages: one, they already have the documentation. Two, if there is some sort of error, they can resolve it. I'm not exactly sure how you resolve that unless you can communicate with the institution that did the first draw. But I do think something Katie said earlier is very important. If there's a problem, get them to give you a copy of their first draw application so you can see the information that was used.
We have the mark.
If there's an error like that, SBA was kind of saying to their suggestion was send it to your commercial loan servicing center. They can help fix some of those errors. If it's something that's simple, like a typing error, that's real easy for them to help you fix.
Well, and if it's an error that you were the lender on the first draw loan and you made an error in input in E-Tran, you can go in and correct those via E-Tran servicing prior to submitting the second draw application.
We have the Mark Twain question from Russell. SBA says someone's dead. The guy says, hey, I'm not dead. I'm right here in front of you. What do we do?
Borrowed in the first round their existing customer.
Definitely not deceased. See, what I like is the affirmative statement.
Oh, so they got an error back. They got an error back from SBA indicating that somebody was deceased.
Yeah, and Russell says, but he's definitely not deceased.
Wow.
Yeah, I can take this one. That's error code 5. Which basically something in E-Tran and public records is suggesting that person is deceased. If they are not dead, you can get an identity affidavit and current proof of a social security number, and that should fix it.
Yeah, it seems like SBA should let us shoot a video of that person.
We're making fun of it, but it's not. Obviously, it's not. But Shane, do you know if there is any way to withdraw a loan after we've approved it for whatever reason?
You can go in. I mean, if they don't want the loan or there's a reason you don't want to do it, you can go into E-Tran and cancel it. Okay. Because even though we're using a new portal, they'll eventually end up in E-Tran like every other SBA loan.
It's 20 minutes past the hour. We have a ton of people on. I'm going to take the extra 5 minutes and answer these rest of these questions, if that's okay. Vicky wants to know, why are banks not being paid for idle advances that were subtracted from forgiveness? I thought this would have already been done. Sort of,
the fun part about this, Bob, is the phone is blowing up for lenders across America because of this. You had your idle forgiveness, and many lenders at that point, 30 days after that, their customers got a statement that says they have a $10,000 balance and they're to begin payments on it. And customers are showing up wanting to make those payments, and they get the statement that has a due date and they're worried about being past due. And lenders are having to say, hey, look, SBA is going to pay that. Don't worry about it. But, customers, I know it. Bob, I've lived my entire life without ever having a past due or even one day past due payment. Normally pay everything in advance. And it would bother me as a small business owner if I'd gotten a statement with a January 20th payment due and my lender saying, hey, don't worry about it, SBA sending a check, which SBA is sending a check. And Vicki, I agree with you. They need to do that ASAP. To alleviate any anxiety small business owners will have about that balance being out there.
Kathy wants to know how our fund's holding up. We tried to get the numbers. We don't have early numbers yet, do we?
No, the SBA gave numbers, I think, right after that first week, and they have not updated it since. I think what they were saying on the webinar yesterday is they're trying to get that updated on the Treasury website, so it should be up there soon. but the SBA website is a bit behind on some of the things they're uploading. So I expect we'll hear about funds probably by the end of the week.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen how fast they're going to be issuing these updates. Last time they were doing that every Friday, and this time I have not seen it.
Yeah, but the funds, it's not going to be a problem with funding.
Well,
No,
Bob, just
Go
a
ahead,
general
Lance.
statement. SBA is our friend. SBA is our partner. I know there's some problems with submissions on these loans and the hold codes are driving you crazy, but just know that they have the same feeling. SBA wants this fixed, and it's driving SBA crazy as well. So just be very patient as you work through this process.
Peter wants to know, on a second round PPP loan, why is SBA requiring nonprofits to show someone with a minimum 20% ownership of the nonprofit when they didn't have to do that on the first round?
That is an interesting question, Bob, because SBA, I think that goes back to E-Tran. And like I said, I'm making an assumption, Bob, but all SBA loans are in E-Tran. And these PPP loans are probably migrating from this platform into E-Tran. I mean, that would be my understanding. And E-Tran requires at least one principal.
Are you experiencing denials based on name discrepancies or filing dates? Ask Jared, and the answer is yes, we are.
A lot of people, Jared.
Becky wants to know, I have a customer whose EIN number was incorrectly entered by the lender. This is preventing us from submitting draw 2. We've sent emails to the support teams letting them know we've updated this, but they still won't let us submit. Suggestions?
Correcting a EIN number is a unilateral servicing action. A first draw PPP loan is an SBA loan that will in fact show up in E-Tran. You should be able to go into E-Tran prior to and correct that first draw PPP loan's EIN number. Now, unless SBA suddenly has put some sort of hold on that, but you should be able to go into E-Tran servicing and correct that.
Good suggestion. Carlos wants to know, can anybody speak to owners taking owner draw on a Schedule C and counting them towards salary? The answer is yes, right? Go back one.
Well, the Schedule C typically is your annual net profit divided by 12. But I think we had this question yesterday when we were talking about somebody that did a Schedule C that paid themselves a salary and reported that on a 941. Well, if they reported it on a 941, you're going to use your 941 as the basis for the calculation. If it was not reported as salary, then you're going to use the net profit on the Schedule C as the basis for the calculation.
Yolanda wants to know, if we don't have a franchise code, we can't proceed. Correct, Lance?
I would agree with that, yes.
Okay, these are questions that just came in. PPP round 1. The question is, we get this question a lot, and I don't have the answers. Hey, we found out that round 1 was miscalculated. They could actually get more money from round 1. Is there a way we can go back and increase it? What can we do?
There is some guidance on increases. You need to look back through the PPP documentation, the IFRs, and just do a Control F for increase, and it'll tell you how to do it.
Beth is following up with a nonprofit question. She says, actually, if there's no actual ownership, the portal kicks it back requiring 20% or more ownership, and you're saying we're okay showing as long as there's there has to be a principal for that.
You're going to have to show a principal of the nonprofit. It could be a manager. But somebody, they may not be a 20% owner, but somebody, like I said, if this migrates to E-Tran the way I think it does, E-Tran requires that there is an individual along with the business entity.
Christian wants to know, we have a borrower who has passed, and he has a portion of his first PPP loan that is still not forgiven. In other words, the paperwork's in limbo. It's a disaster. What do we do in that situation, Lance?
I would think that one may be difficult to get through the portal. But technically, the forgiveness.
They're talking forgiveness now. They're talking forgiveness.
Oh, the forgiveness. And
Right.
part of it's not been, reread the question, please, Bob.
We have a borrower who has passed, and he has a portion of the first PPP loan that is still not forgiven. What should we do?
I think I would notify SBA servicing. If you're in California, notify Fresno. If you're in the south and east part of the country, notify Little Rock, and just give them the loan number and identify that the owner of the business has passed.
Raman asked the question, basically, do we have to compare apples with apples? If we could take second quarter 2019, we need to use second quarter 2019. Can I use third quarter 2020 versus second quarter 2019?
No, you've got to go quarter to quarter.
Okay. And finally, we filed in our management company, but our company is made of hotels and other businesses. How do we get the 3.5 multiplier for the loan calculation versus the 2.5 since our NAICS code is not a 72 hotel code?
You're going to have an NAICS code of 72.
Very good. Sorry for taking longer, but I can see by the people who stuck around it was worth their time. I like to start and stop on time. Woo! A lot of questions. Keep them coming. And Lance, we're going to do this webinar tomorrow, which is going to talk about really getting to the first and second draws. Your touch on loan forgiveness. And then we'll also, we have those two next week. If you want to do any of that, just send me an email. We'll do all the paperwork and we'll deal with that. Lance, Katie, thank you very much. Thank you for joining us, everyone, today for Coleman Report Live and for supporting America's Main Street. One PPP entrepreneur at a time.
Have a great day.
Great day.